to Ellen Meyl-Galloway and information about a low-income housing project.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you all today. As I said, Ellen Meyl-Galloway with the City of Eugene's Community Development Division, and I'm here to talk to you about a proposed affordable housing development in the neighborhood and a volunteer opportunity to help evaluate the proposal. So I'll first tell you about the housing request for proposals process, also called the RFP process, and the evaluation committee. And then I will summarize the proposal in the neighborhood. The city receives federal funds each year to create housing for low-income households. Because they're public funds, the city offers the money through an RFP process. The city asks developers to submit proposals through the RFP, then staff and an evaluation committee review and score each proposal. The evaluation committee evaluates the proposals for location, target population to be served, financial feasibility, and whether it follows federal requirements since it's federal funds. After the proposals are scored, they go to City Council for review and approval. And because the housing funds we receive are received in partnership with City of Springfield, a joint Eugene-Springfield governing board actually makes the final decisions for funding. After the developments are awarded funding, they complete the rest of their project financing, applying for loans and all that. They do their due diligence that they need to do, and then they start construction. So that's the whole RFP process. Now I'll tell you more about the evaluation committee and its responsibilities. Each year when the city receives proposals, we ask for a volunteer from the neighborhood association where the proposal is located to participate in the evaluation committee. This helps bring the neighborhood perspective into the process for selecting developments. The neighborhood member does not have to have development expertise, but is bringing their own perspective to scoring the development proposal. Evaluation committee members read the proposal and score it using a scoring form that the city provides. There will be one virtual meeting in early December to mid-December to hold a public hearing for the proposal and to meet together with the evaluation committee to discuss the scores all together. At the end of the meeting, all the scores and the scoring forms will be collected from each evaluation committee member for the public record. Members would not have to go to the city council meeting or the governing board meeting to award funds. So tonight I'm here to ask if Santa Clara Community Organization to select a volunteer to participate on the evaluation committee to review the proposal for a development called the Lucy, which I'll tell you about next. You don't have to decide tonight who the volunteer is. You can let me know if there's a volunteer later, and I will be available at any time, after the meeting, whenever anyone wants to answer any questions about volunteering. And now I just want to tell you real quick about the Lucy proposal. Cornerstone Community Housing is one of our affordable housing providers in the community, and they've proposed a 36-unit development on the same property as their 8-unit apartment complex called Delta Court, which is at 850 Hunsaker Lane. The 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units are targeted to households earning no more than 60% of the area median income, including 8 units that would be targeted to households earning no more than 30% of the area median income, and they would have rental assistance to help them with rent. The property would also include a community center and a play area for children. As typical of Cornerstone's housing, there would be a resident services provided at the development, and there would be a manager who would live on site. That's all I'll say now about the proposal, but if you'd like to see it, it's posted on the city community development web page. Cornerstone has applied for housing funds through the RFP before and has been awarded before, but they have not been able to complete their financing and move forward towards construction. So if this property sounds familiar to any of you, or if you feel like you've seen me here before saying these very same things, that is true. But each time Cornerstone has applied, they have a new concept. So this time they have applied, they have a new financing strategy using new state funds. So please let us know if you have any questions about the proposal or the evaluation committee. And also Kate Purley was kind enough to volunteer for the evaluation committee in the past, so she also may be able to answer questions about it. Thank you. If anyone has any questions now, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
Is there a time, Ellen, by which you need a volunteer? Like, what's the time frame for review and commenting?
Well, there's not really a time frame because we don't have the evaluation committee, the virtual meeting scheduled yet, but it will be some weekday afternoon, late afternoon between December 9th and December 17th. And so the timing of getting a volunteer just depends on how quickly that volunteer can review this one proposal and do the scoring. So if they want a couple of weeks to read it, then you might want to get a volunteer on board in the next few weeks. But really, if a volunteer were able to review the proposal fairly quickly, you could wait until December if you wanted.
Hey, Kate.
Yeah?
This is Ivy Dreyer Goldman. I was a teacher at the preschool there. I know where that is. I have a master's in social work, have the time that I would very much like to volunteer on behalf of our neighborhood. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Excited. Yeah, I'd like to do that. So.
Okay, let's see. So
if the group agrees, I don't know if there are other people that are interested. So just putting it out there for consideration.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to do this job?
I see a hand up. I don't know if it was a hand for a question.
I saw a hand clapping. Was that?
Oh, clapping.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, Patrick.
Hello, Ellen. Is this location on Hunsaker in previous iteration? Is it taking into consideration the revised roadway design that's in there?
Thank you for that question. Cornerstone Community Housing originally acquired that property. I think it was in 2016 maybe, and part of the difficulty in their first proposal, which was subsequent to acquiring the property, was the difficulty of Hunsaker Lane for pedestrians. And as far as getting to transit and things like that, I think that may have had an effect on their first attempt at getting state financing. And so having that road design now complete and being implemented, it's going to be a great benefit to the residents who already live there, who are in their first phase, the Delta Court. But it's also going to really benefit additional development on the site. So they have been involved with Lane County's process all these years, and they're really looking forward to the improvements.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ellen?
Yeah, I would just like to get that address.
The web address or the
the new proposed location?
It's 850 Hunsaker Lane.
Okay.
There's an existing development there right on Hunsaker Lane called Delta Court. And if you went into the driveway, into the parking lot, there's a big vacant property back there. So that's where the development would be located, on the vacant property that they purchased with the intention of doing this phase 2. And if you want to see what the proposed development is, that's on our website, that you can find the proposal itself, and it has site plans and renderings of the proposed development.
Ellen, I think, isn't that property on Ross Lane?
There's the one that you're thinking of. When you said that you had worked in a daycare, that's what I wondered if you would.
Yeah, on Ross.
So that's a different development. That's a St. Vincent de Paul development called Ross Lane.
Right. It's all in that. It's in that area.
Right.
Got it.
Michael and Suzanne, your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if we could be kept apprised of how this goes along from the volunteer and perhaps from the city organization too. I'm really interested in this process.
Yes, absolutely. And if Ivy is the volunteer, I'm sure there could be a report back to Santa Clara Community Organization about it. And you're also, I can always come back too. I don't mind doing that either.
Oh, great. That would be great. Yeah. And
Thanks.
sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for Ellen? Oh, Mary, your hand's up.
Yeah, is there any way, if they wanted to be kept apprised, if there are meetings or Zoom meetings about it, if they wanted to, can they get linked into that, or is there an email list they can get on, or anyone could get on to follow it?
We, for a finite RFP, we have a different interest list than we have for all RFPs. Like, we have an RFP interest list that developers are on, or housing providers that, you know, always want to know all about the RFPs. But for individual projects, because they may or may not move forward after December, it sort of depends on the scoring and how things turn out. We do have 4 proposals and probably only enough funding to move forward with 2 of the proposals. But we kind of rely on the neighborhood associations to keep each other informed. But I can tell you already, I do know the date of the city council meeting will be January 11th. And I don't have a date yet for the governing board, which will be the final funding decisions. But another way to keep informed is through the affordable housing provider, which Cornerstone Community Housing wanted to be here tonight, but they weren't able to. So they are happy to keep in touch as well, because they are members of the community as well. So, so they can always keep you all up to date as well.
Great. Anything else for Ellen? Thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you, Ivy, for stepping up. And we will move on to the next item then. So now we're going to have an update on the transfer station from Randi and Pat Walsh.
Hi, thanks, Kate, and thank you for having us here tonight. We're going to break this into 2 parts. Randi's going to start off, and she's going to give you an update on the construction of the new transit station, and then I'll talk about the undeveloped property next to it. So take it away, Randi.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Are you all able to see this photo of the station, the construction area? So as we said earlier, I'm Randi, the project manager with LTD for the Santa Clara Transit Station. Pat Walsh, who's the public information officer, and Joe, who's our director of facilities, is also on this Zoom meeting. So I last spoke with your group in June during another Zoom meeting, giving a little update on construction, and so it's about time we give you guys another update on where we're at with construction. And as Pat said, after I give you guys an update, he'll touch base on that northern property, the Hunsaker property. But with regards to Santa Clara, the station there, as you guys are aware, we started construction this past spring. We did have some bumps in the road with COVID and the wildfire shutting us down a couple weeks, but we're still on schedule. The park and ride, which is going to be at the top end of your screen, the east end of our site, is nearly complete. I know it's hard to kind of believe looking at this photo, but all we have left there is to do some landscaping, some striping in the lot, and to install lighting around the park and ride. The landscapers will be on site beginning tomorrow, and they'll be there through the end of the year. Obviously, they have a lot of landscape to do around the entire site. Same with lighting. We have to install the lighting around the rest of the site as well. Kind of more on the right side of your screen, this is Green Lane over here. As you can see, it's been reconstructed, and the sidewalk that was also built on the north side of Green Lane, it blends in with the rock on site right now, but there was a sidewalk that's built along the entire southern side of the transit station. Currently, the contractors are installing poles for the new traffic signal that's here at this intersection of River Road and Green Lane. They're also working on some sidewalk repairs over in front of the fire department. The driver relief building, which is this small little building almost in the middle of your screen, is currently having some doors and windows installed. And then we'll be able to move forward with installing drywall and all the interior finishes. At the bus platform, which looks like this big graveled area right here, today we just began installing the structures for the shelters. So in the very center of it, there'll be 3 shelters, and then there's 6 bus bays. As you can tell, we still have a lot of concrete to pour in this bus loop area, as well as on the station platform. The concrete form will last well into December. Most of the construction work here on site will be completed by the end of December. In January, we'll have drivers training at the new station, and we'll be busy commissioning the new equipment, getting everything up and running. The station is planned to open for service on February 7th, so not too far away from today. And also, just as an update to the group, at this time, we don't have a planned date for a grand opening ceremony because of COVID, but we're hoping once it's safe to do so, we can celebrate the new station with the community and everyone that's helped this project come to light. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the construction aspect of this project?
This is Gary Haliski. I'm just, the traffic signals that are going to go in, I am sure that we, through our website, are going to get a lot of complaints. And I'm just wondering, how long does it typically take for people to get used to that new traffic pattern? Because I know they're going to go crazy at first and it'll die down. And do you have any history with that, about how long it takes people to settle into? I mean, that's a major change there.
Right, Gary, I don't have an answer to that, but I can reach out to our traffic engineer and get back in touch with you guys with an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a comment here from Kevin Jones.
It's a question comment. So while the construction's been going on, there's been some traffic reflow. You know, you've had to condense people down to 1 lane at times. And I've been kind of disappointed, given that this is an alternative transportation organization, at the lack of good, so the issue is when I'm riding in the bike lane, they've got markers, flags right in the middle blocking the bike lane saying street closure up ahead. And so I have to venture out into traffic to get around the street signs because they're taking up the bike lane. And I'm hoping that any other street work that goes on from this point on, people can be, the subcontractors can be made aware that this is something that they could try to set up differently. And I think ultimately we need, to really make things work smoothly, we need different sign arrangements for subcontractors so that they are able to get their point across without having the markers out in the middle of traffic. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments.
I would like to agree with Kevin there. I see people not able to use that sidewalk at all to walk, and they're carrying their groceries and they're walking out in the street and all kinds of stuff. So I think that's a really good comment, Kevin.
We did this, the sidewalk along the eastern side of River Road has been closed down for a while. We did completely reconstruct that sidewalk.
Is it open now?
No, it's not. We're still doing just construction work right adjacent to it. So we're keeping it closed down for the safety of pedestrians.
They can walk in the street.
Yeah, force them into the street. Then.
Yeah, let's have them walk in the street then.
We do have signage up directing them to use the sidewalk on the west side of River Road.
But it's still a point that Kevin made is when you put up a sign in the middle of the sidewalk or the bike lane that says closed, you can't go anywhere and they block it off. The contractors are leaving signs up saying lane closed ahead, and there's nothing closed for 3 days, 4 days. So part of this is that communication and access to not just businesses, but to the sidewalk and facilities that are there, to this alternative transportation.
Yep, noted. I'll talk to the contractors about that and see if we can make better arrangements there.
Thank you.
Are there any great? Did you say so? The opening date is that February 7th, 2021 or 2022?
2021, just here in a few months.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow.
Yep.
I have a comment.
Yep.
This is Joyce Peters. For the first time driving down the road where it says, I can see it now, it says keep clear in the right hand southbound lanes.
Yep.
But when you're down there in a car, it just looks, well, I told my husband, it looks like somebody spilled their alphabet soup. You can't read it. You can read the one where the letters are close together, but the one that's spread out across 2 lanes, it's really distracting.
I'll concur with that.
Okay.
That makes sense. It's really signage for helicopters.
Okay, got it.
The drones.
Are there other questions or comments for Randy?
Well, were we going to hear anything about the land use that was questionable?
Yep, that's going to be Pat in the next. Pat's going to talk about the rest of the site when we're done discussing the actual transit station.
A question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I was just wondering, what is the direction that the buses are going to use and going in and out?
Yeah. So when buses are heading northbound on River Road, they're going to turn into the transit station right here. If you can see my mouse at the northwest corner.
Yeah. Okay.
And then buses circulate the bus loop going clockwise. All buses heading south on River Road will come to the traffic signal and turn onto Green Lane to access the station. And then all buses exiting the station will exit onto Green Lane and then go to the traffic signal where they'll be able to head north or south on River Road.
Oh, okay. So that's why you've got the keep clear of that intersection is for the buses getting in and out there, huh? Okay.
No, actually, this keep clear here was for the fire department. So the fire department has to, the way they're funded, they have to be able to be activated at any time. So if they need to get out of their driveway, they don't want cars parked here at the traffic signal if cars going southbound on River Road are at a red light.
Well, when the traffic backs up from that signal going into the Santa Clara Square, that intersection is blocked going both, going down River Road towards it, going into town frequently. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks are probably going to ignore the keep clear sign as well.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Oh, saying it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy, there was a question here about why, if you wanted to keep that clear, wouldn't you have just put the traffic signal further north to where you want it instead of up where you have it and then asking for people not to stack right behind it?
Let me share my screen again real quick.
I understand it would be mid-block instead of, yeah, exactly. Like, why wouldn't you put it further to the north, right? Like where your cursor is, or a little bit to the left on your screen. Move your light so that the
traffic just has to stop.
Well, don't stop there.
I think I just like to point out that perhaps if the label could say fire lane keep clear or something like that to explain to people why that sign is there, because nobody really understands what that means. I thought it was for the walking crosswalk. So if it's truly for a fire lane, if they could label it as such, I think people would pay attention to it a little bit more.
Agree.
Agree. Kind of to that point, I was wondering if there was some kind of standard, or this is just an idea for this because it's a pretty unique situation, is like they have some of the bike lanes painted green as a background. If this could be painted red on the background, so it'd be apparent it was for the fire station.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
I don't know if that's a possibility, but it is a question that we can ask.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, and people are not going to like it, but it made me stop. Did anybody else have a problem seeing it to stop? Like I was really clear that I needed to stop there. So like, I mean, I hear you on like,
there's a fire station there. I think it's very clear.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. I understood I need to keep clear. I could read it on the left. I could see the alphabet soup on the right. I think it works. I'm just saying. It's just my opinion. I think it works. It's effective, personally.
So when we went down, there was more traffic. You couldn't read it. And it was very distracting to be trying to read it and not paying attention to the rest of the traffic. That was my experience. It was very distracting. Didn't know what it was.
Did you figure out to stop? I mean, did you figure it out?
No.
No? I figured
we were gone. We were through it.
Interesting.
Better? I can't see. I think it's going to take a while to figure it out, but I think it's all new. I mean, it was so clear that there was a fire station there, that there's something was happening, and I think we're just going to have to pay some attention and try and figure out some changes.
Yeah. I think it's like people said, you kind of get used to it, maybe.
Aren't there also going to be traffic lights there that are going to go red and allow the trucks to go, fire trucks to come out? And it's, the hope is that you don't take up that extra 20 feet.
I think we need to keep in mind that people use River Road that don't live in Santa Clara. And so for people, transporting through there, any way we can make it clear would be helpful. And I think that a good point was made when you talk about backup traffic. You can't read it if cars are in front of you and that kind of thing. So I just think it would be, I think it's clear, and I saw it and I stopped for it, but I didn't know exactly why it said keep clear. And I think it would be helpful for somehow, because if you're not familiar with the area, you may not be looking to see that there's a fire station right there. So any way you can connect the two, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, and once the lights get installed and are fully functioning, it will be clear. Right now, it's kind of weird since the lights aren't there.
Joel, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was just thinking if you can't put red behind it, maybe if you make a line that's like 3 feet wide or something just ahead of it, that at least that might make people more aware that the fire station's there and that's what it's for. And you could even put in that red line, fire lane or something like that. That would be easier than trying to paint it behind it, I think. That's all.
Hey, anything else for Randy? Okay, not hearing any screaming, I would say thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for your good ideas. Pat, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Kate. As you know, next to the station is a piece of property that I think we're all pretty interested in and what's going to happen to it next. I want to give you a little bit of an update in terms of where LTD is on that property at this point. What I can tell you is that I don't think I know the board is not going to make a decision about what will happen on that property until after January 1 of 2021. And their first step, and this is by requirement and by law, is purely procedural. And what they have to do is vote to declare that property is surplus. And once they do that, it releases it from the required use for mass transit. And that's based on the funding that was used to buy that property. And then once they do that, LTD is, well, just so you know, also, once they declare the property, to declare the property surplus is not going to have any impact on when the property is sold, to whom the property is sold, or how the property is going to be developed. Once that decision is made, then LTD is under no timeline to sell the property. But one thing I can tell you that's absolutely for certain is that LTD will not be the property developer or the landlord for that property. The intent is that after the property is declared surplus, that eventually the property will be sold to a public or private developer. And at that point, that developer is going to need to run through all the city processes, including a PUD overlay that will give the community and LTD as a neighbor, the ample opportunities to weigh in about the type of development that's going to be built on that site. It's really important to understand that once we get to that point, LTD and the neighbors have the same basic interests. What's really important to LTD is that whatever is built on that property must be safe. And it must be well built, well maintained, well managed, and it has to enhance the neighborhood. We first talked about, with this group, the property being going to be put up for sale in September of last year. And the reason why we haven't reported on it is because there's been no news to report about what's going to happen with that property until now, and until now. So I wanted to give you that update. I'm going to do a better job making sure you are informed about the process, the timeline of how that property is going to be dealt with after it's declared a surplus. So if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but right now there's really no movement on that property until after the first of the year when it's declared surplus. And then I don't know what the timeline is going to be to sell that property, or what the process is going to look like to sell that property. So if you've got questions, I'll answer them the best I can, and what I can't answer, I'll get back to you with the answers on.
I would like to offer first, Pat, that this is Tim Felker. That was kind of the message that you gave us early on, and it seemed to be understood, but communication was a little lacking. And so I appreciate you coming forward and saying you'll improve that connection. And what you're saying makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Patrick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Pat, thanks for the update. A question on the property, is there any covenant or anything with the grants that were on there that has to be kept in a certain configuration, or keep that, I won't say land bank, but to keep that property versus developing it?
No, not, I don't know, maybe Randy or Joe might have a better answer, but to my knowledge, no. I know that the intent, at least, and this is preliminary, so don't hold me to this, is that when the district goes to sell that property, they want to sell it all in one piece. They don't want it parceled out, but they want it, and in terms of covenants, not that I'm aware of. I know there's great interest by the neighborhood, given the history of that property, for some of that history to be preserved there, but I don't know anything that's official.
Because of, thank you, is it with the Connect Oregon grant, the other way that it was purchased, I think it was $10 million purchase, does any of that money go back into the community, or how does that get, it was acquired with this grant to purchase this property to develop it, and then if you sell it and you have this surplus and you have this revenue, what happens to that?
To that money, that money will go back into the district and be used for transit purposes.
Mary, your hand's up.
Yeah, so if you vote to declare surplus, why does that have to be done in January? Is there a rush for that to be done in January if you're not sure what you're going to do with it?
Well, it will be, as I said, the decision will be made after January 1st. So, you know,
the decision to declare it surplus?
To declare it surplus. And then after that, the district is under no timeline to come up with a process to sell the property or to sell it. I mean, to sell it outright.
So if there's no timeline, why do you have to do it January 1st if you don't have anything?
I didn't say we were going to do it January 1st. We're going to do it after January 1st. It won't happen before January 1st, but after January 1st. So because in order to move forward with anything with the property that's not mass transit related, that procedural decision has to be made by the board. And because, and as it comes up on the agenda and on the priorities, like I said, it will happen after January 1. So.
And will we get notice of when that might happen?
The procedural decision?
Yeah.
Certainly our agendas are all on our website. And I will send an email to Kate and she can let the rest of you know. Also, like I said, it's not an opportunity to come and talk about what you want developed on the property or how it should be sold or when it should be sold. It's purely a procedural decision.
Right, but it's a procedural decision before it gets sold. So when you first came, LTD first came to us, you had for Santa Clara Community Organization to sign off and say, yeah, we think this is a good idea for the neighborhood. There were a lot of ideas about what you guys would possibly do with that. And so I have concerns that, well, I would like to know if there are some guarantees that that LTD will get in touch with Santa Clara Community Organization before you sell it to anyone else. Because
absolutely. You know, you will be, that will all be public. That will go, you know, the decision to sell the property, to turn it surplus, the decision on the process to sell the property, and then whatever comes after that will all be done through public meetings. And you know, certainly, you know, the Santa Clara neighborhood or community organization has the opportunity will have an opportunity to weigh in on those things.
Yeah, because when you first came to us, what you represented is a little different than I think what's happening now. And I think Santa Clara signed off on it based on what you had said to us originally. So obviously a lot of us have concerns.
Sure, understood.
I get, yeah, along those lines, Pat, I think one of the things is we're concerned that you may come to us and share with us the fact that you have this developer who you're planning to sell to without us having any input prior to that point, because like Mary pointed out, we did a lot of design work and a lot of dream work in a way on what that might be for a center for Santa Clara. And so we're concerned that we're just going to be presented down the line saying, okay, we're coming to let you know that here's what's happening with the property. We have this buyer and this is their plans and they'll have to run it by you, but it'll be totally different from anything that we envisioned with you in the past.
Yeah, we can't, I understand what you're saying, Ann. You know, I get it, I really do. You know, we are not going to guarantee, you know, that the developer is going to build. I mean, the developer's got to run through all the same process as anybody else does, and that will be the time to do that. And I would hope that I don't know what the process is going to be to sell the property. We don't know that yet, but I would hope that you'll be weighing in before then to let us know and to let potential developers know what it's going to be. Because the problem we have, and you understand as anybody who's selling has ever sold a piece of property, is it, you know, the more requirements you put on the property, the less likely you are to sell it. And we don't want an empty piece of property there. We also don't want to let it go to anybody that's going to do anything there that, you know, that's within the code. You know, we care. I mean, we care about who's going to be there. We got to live next to him too.
Well,
Quick follow-up question on that. You mentioned it wasn't a priority to sell it yet, but it is a priority for the commission to at least show it as surplus. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, after the first of the year when it'll come up, yeah. And it's not I wouldn't call it, I don't know if it's a priority, but it will become one. It's here after the first of the year. I don't know when, whether it'll be in January or February or after.
Yeah, it just seems that it's. I understand the procedural side to get to it. Just the why is it a priority sooner rather than later with nothing in the wings yet, and just something to think about.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I don't think there's anything, you know, any backstory to that other than that items come up on the board's agenda, and you know, Santa Clara's and we'll be finished with that station in February, and it'll be open and operating. So I think that's what you know is moving this.
This is Tim.
Tim, Tim, Joel Robes had his hand up for ages. Maybe we could just
go, Joel. You do it.
Hi, Joel.
Unmute, Joel.
Joel, you're muted.
I've done that a lot.
There we go. Sorry. I just wanted to let Pat know that I appreciate the fact that, you know, he's got to live there and there's, you know, they want to make it safe and all that. The one thing I do want him to understand too is that a lot of people put in a lot of time over the last few years to set up a neighborhood plan. And we think that LTD should, you know, follow that plan, even now it hasn't been codified or anything. So it's just a matter of, we'd like you to understand that a lot of people are interested in making sure that that property meets that plan. So just, if you aren't familiar with that plan, I'm sure we could all get you a copy.
No, I would like, I think I've got a copy, but I would like to see it. You know, we understand that. And again, I want to emphasize that LTD is not going to develop that property. Somebody else will. And there's going to be ample time, I believe, for everybody to weigh in on that, on what will be built there, you know, through the city processes or even and possibly before then.
Well, but I think LTD could be a friend of Santa Clara in respect of letting people know that when they're selling that property, that there is a neighborhood plan that's being developed or almost complete, basically, that they'll be expected to follow. You know, that would sure be nice. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I understand, and I think that'll be part of any. I'm sure that'll be part of any developers, public or privates. You know, information for sure.
I've got a question.
Hold on, George. So it's Tim Felker, Kevin Jones, Matt Vose, then George Price. Go.
Oh, I'm popular. This is great.
So I just had a question. Is there a history of surplus property that LTD has dealt with recently or in the past? And can you give us a little synopsis of what happened to the property?
You know, I can't. That's a good question, and I'll have to get back to you. I haven't been with the agency long enough to know about how surplus property has been dealt with in the past. And I can't see who was speaking. Who was that?
Oh, that was Tim Felker, and the gist of the question was basically, you know, is LTD looking to maximize profit from that surplus property, and that would have an effect on who is able to actually develop it in terms of financing.
I think what I have heard, and again, you know, there's nothing in stone on this, is that you know, with LTD also has an obligation to get a fair market price for that property because it was bought with taxpayer dollars. Beyond people in Santa Clara, it was bought with a lot of taxpayer a lot of taxpayers contributed to that. So I know that there are requirements that there be a fair market value or an appraised value or something.
But the taxpayers wouldn't benefit from it. Only
well, some would.
The operations. Well,
yeah, some would.
LTD user.
Yeah, and some LTD users would, right? So it's you know, it's like anything else, I think, with government, where you know, you don't always get the oh, I have a message here from somebody at LTD. We haven't surplus property before, so I can't address that.
Wow.
Okay. Kevin Jones then.
Katie led me to believe that the property was purchased by LTD for approximately $4 million. Is that correct?
I think, yeah, I think that, and then plus with the station, that's been built, it's about a $10 million project, right?
Okay, and so my question is, do you have any sense for what a current appraisal would say that the excess property's value is at this point?
There's not been an appraisal done to my knowledge, and I'm not gonna speculate on what that might look like.
Okay, can we know that when that's done? Can you forward us that information, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
And would you determine the value of that property before you decided it was surplus?
No, we don't have use for the property. Right, we built a station on the size of on the property at Green Lane. Now we don't have use for the rest of that property. Initially, the idea was that LTD would build on that whole property. There'd be a lot of things, and then they scaled the project back. So now we have this surplus or excess property that must be
right. And my question was, will it be appraised before it is voted on to be designated surplus?
I don't know that. I don't know that level of detail, but I would presume that they're going to want to know what the value is. What's behind that question?
Nothing. I would like to find out what that property is valued at, and so when will we be able to know that?
I don't know. As I just told you, I don't know. That will come after the first of the year, after we get into the process of after it's determined that the property is surplus, and then we will move into all of those, into the phases of firm information gathering and then moving it forward.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt Vose, then George Price.
All right, thanks, Kate, and thanks, Pat, for being with us. My question is just about the original agenda item that it was going to be up to the general manager to negotiate the sale at or above appraised value, and it sounds like the at or above appraised value is a standard that LTE is going to follow, but with the the language in that of the general manager negotiating that sale solely seemed a little a lack of transparency. Where does the board ever deal in those things where they would vote on the sale itself instead of having that just in the hands of the general manager?
Well, they would leave it up to her to do that, but they would have to, they would be part of her decision process. She wouldn't do that in a vacuum by herself. She's got.
So there would still have to be some transparency after she made a decision.
Well, yeah, and I'm not going to say there isn't transparency if she's doing it. It's a public process, a public agency, but yeah.
Yeah. Just when I read it, it said that it was delegating authority to her to negotiate the sale. And so it just seemed like, yeah, as long as the board could still be involved.
Sure. Good question. Thanks.
George.
Well, my questions were pretty much answered. However, I do think it's incumbent upon Pat to continue to keep us advised and we're putting it on you now, dude. Keep us advised and, let us know where we stand. Just, getting the super objective view, overhead view that you're giving us is, wherein there's no accountability because we're just making it a surplus property. That doesn't float. We need to see some heart. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm going to put it back on you, George, and everybody else. I'm going to keep you updated, but if you've got questions, call me. Okay. It doesn't help when we get people talking to other agencies in town and, trying to get answers about what we're doing when all you got to do is call us and then we'll go, my gosh, we have not done a good job communicating. And then what we'll do is we'll answer your questions and we'll do a better job of being engaged. But getting other neighborhood associations involved and doing all this and talking with the city when it's our property. I mean, I just want you to know, all you got to do is pick up the phone or send me an email, and I will do a better job communicating with all of you as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Mary Leontovich, then Kevin Jones, then Ann Vaughn.
So just one other question. Do you know if in the LTD charter you are required to sell to the highest bidder?
That I don't know, but but in conversations around the office, I don't think that we have to do that.
Pat, I can answer that.
Can you?
The answer is no. We are not required to sell to the highest bidder.
Do you have to sell to someone within 10% of the highest bidder, or you can just randomly, do you know what the constraints are?
There aren't constraints. The is to get a fair market value for the property.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
But if we ended up getting offers that were lower, it would be up to the board at that point.
Yeah. Thanks, Randy.
Kevin Jones, then Ann Vaughn.
So I just wanted to put it out there because I don't know what other forum I'd put it out there in, but when this kind of thing comes up, I start thinking about, community investment and being a partial investor, and that there are probably organizations which one could funnel their investments through. And so I'm planting that seed, and I don't know if there's any kind of a system that happens with this Zoom or something else, or on the Santa Clara website where people could chime in and just say, yeah, I'm curious, I'm interested. I'd be interested in exploring that some. But if there is, and anyone wants to set it up or explain it, then I would encourage that too. Thanks.
Ann Vaughn, then Michael and Suzanne Neiman.
Pat, I have kind of a two-part question, I guess.
Okay.
One part is what all has to do with the vision for that area. And we've had conversations over time, as you know, about what that might look like. And we've had conversations with the city, and they're interested in helping us develop and see that vision for that area. So one part of my question is, would your board be willing to give an incentive for a developer if they were willing to include some open space there. So in other words, offer it at a lower than market value because they were going to build this amenity to serve Santa Clara. And then the other part of my question is there still the possibility of LTD and Santa Clara and the city working together, envisioning what might happen on that property?
One, and those are great questions. I'm going to take your first question about an incentive to a builder for open space. I'm going to take that back to our team. I don't have I mean, we really haven't gotten into any details on that sale, but that's a good suggestion, and one that like I said, I will take back to the team. You know, again, I know LTD does not want to be a property developer. That's not what the agency really does, other than for, you know, obviously to bring, you know, buses into a new station. But we really don't want to be in the property development or management business. You know, if the City of Eugene, you know, wants to put in a bid on that property when it comes up for sale, I mean, that certainly would be considered. I mean, the city's been a great partner with LTD on a number of things. So, you know, that's a possibility. But I don't see LTD getting involved in the development part of this project very far. But I think it's a great idea for some incentive for open space that to a developer when they, you know, if they were to put in, when they put together an RFP or an RFQ for developers to, you know, weigh in on.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Michael and Suzanne, and then Don Leslie.
I'm sure this question is, you know, just because we're new to Eugene, very new, but is LTD a private corporation or a public agency?
It's a public agency. Its board is appointed by the governor. Your representative out here is a woman named Caitlin Vargas, who's new on the board. LTD is funded primarily through payroll taxes paid by employers and employees. And then, of course, you know, we get a variety of, we get funding from a variety of federal and state sources for programs and to buy new buses and to build stations like the new Santa Clara station and to be able to improve some of our infrastructure.
So the property was essentially purchased with public money?
It was it was purchased with money from the federal government, money from the state government, and a smaller portion from local dollars.
So the property was purchased with public money, but the agency can sell it at a profit and just funnel that profit back into its own operation.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't. I don't know how we would know. I mean, we'd have to sell it for more than. We have to get fair market value for the property. I think that I think is something that we have to do. So it's not really a profit. It's not. It's being, you know, it's when you sell a piece of property like that and you're a public entity. I mean, you have to be responsible to all the taxpayers by not just giving it away or not getting what's fair.
Yeah, I guess the public aspect of it comes in more, not so much in the cost, but in what's done with the property. I think that's the point everyone
I understand
trying to make.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for answering.
Thank you.
John Leslie, you're up.
So actually, that's a good point leading into this comment I was going to make, which was to amplify a conversation that just started to happen when you were talking with Joel, Pat, and Anne was getting at it, and now Michael's really gotten at it harder too. You know, when you say that a lot of public money went into this property, And it's the responsibility of the district to steward, I don't think you used that word, but that was my impression, to steward that investment. You know, selling it to the highest bidder doesn't, to me, fulfill a vision of bringing value back to the community. And so when I think about highest and best use of that property, or highest and best use of that community investment, for it to benefit the largest number of people to the greatest benefit of the community, sounds to me like, you know, you'd have to read our plan that you have to understand where we're coming from on how we see, and how hundreds of us over thousands of hours see what the highest and best use of that property might be. And it wouldn't be just to sell it to the highest bidder, or to throw a bone for a little bit of necessary, you know, just a little bit of green space, but to really understand where we're coming from, again, from thousands of hours of volunteer community input. That would be stewarding. That would be, to my impression would be, that would be stewarding the public investment to the highest and best good of the area.
I appreciate that, Dawn. One thing I'm going to ask you is we are not talking about selling it to the highest bidder. And I think I've said that several times. All we have to do is get fair market value, and even Randy cleaned that up. So I don't want that perception to continue, because we don't know, because we don't even have any idea what those bids might look like. Secondly, I absolutely understand the hard work that it takes to put a plan like that together. I also understand, from a personal standpoint, the peril of putting a plan like that together, is because you're talking about property that that you don't control. And I think that LTD wants to be, I know they want to be a good neighbor. It's important to them that what's on that piece of property, you know, enhances the neighborhood, but they are not a developer. And they will go ahead and certainly work through the process and work. And if the City of Eugene wants to come in and purchase it, that's great. And certainly, as you know, Dawn, through the PUD processes and other things, that's where the community has the opportunity to come in and weigh in, one way, the community has a way to weigh in about what's built there. And they can also do it on the front end, in terms of you know, when there's RFPs that are going to be sent out and other things. So I ask particularly that we not keep talking about this in terms of being sold to the highest bidder. That would be inaccurate at this point.
Okay. Are there more questions for Pat tonight? All right. So maybe we will say thank you very much, Pat, for spending that time with us. And we'll move on to our next agenda item. And I'm sure that we will come back to more discussion about the rest of that site on another day.
Thank you.
Okay, so now